Awesome. And then Kyle is my moderator. We'll see once Kyle gets in if he can confirm.
Yep, I'm here.
Right on. How you doing, Kyle?
Good, good. Today's webinar is better reporting with Windward Intelligence, and our presenter is Tavis Johnson, who's the Director of Sales and Marketing here. And we'll get started here right on the top of the hour.
Yeah, we're still getting some people logged in, so we'll give them a minute. Recognize the names in there. Todd, how you doing? Some different people, you bet. Even some Windward folks watching today, getting the internal critique here, checking on my sales skills, I think. I'll share my webcam for the start, and we'll give just one more minute before we dig in. So for those that don't know, my name is Tavis Johnson. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Windward. I've worked here just over 10 years now. Really the intent of this webinar, we do have our typical customer care webinars, which are very educational and process driven to make sure that you're using the system adequately. What I felt we needed was some awareness around some pretty cool new products, and today specifically Windward Intelligence. So I'm going to start with just some of the backstory. Windward Intelligence is an add-on module that originally we launched for our cloud customers in 2018. Windward Intelligence is the name of our product, but it relies on Microsoft's Power BI technology. So Power BI is an extension of the Microsoft Office suite. It's a big data analytics reporting tool. So that's some scary words for certain people, but really what you're here to learn about today is we've taken Power BI's technology, we've integrated the Windward database, and we've created a nice clean template of reports that you would use in your business, really just to analyze sales and trends, year-over-year type reporting that you can do in Windward, but we'll talk about some of the pros and cons of using this add-on versus built-in Windward reports. So we look like we got quite a bit of attendance. I'm going to turn my webcam off. It's nice to see everybody, and we've got my screen share going. Kyle, we're good on the screen share. Looks like we got the right one.
Yeah, looks great.
Perfect. All right, slide 2. I'm going to really keep it light on the slides today, everybody. I want to just get into the meat and potatoes of the actual product. So Windward Intelligence is really about advanced business insights. So you've got your standard Windward software reports, and what we're doing here is synchronizing or replicating a lot of your sales database over to Microsoft's Power BI and the Windward Intelligence product. There's a series of reports. There's 7 canned reports that we're going to just briefly review today, kind of give you some use cases of what these reports could do for you. But really what we're trying to do is give you a browser-based or mobile-based interface for just analyzing your sales from a variety of different angles. So that's really the key takeaway from this is a reporting tool that bolts onto your Windward System 5 data set. We're going to dig into the actual demo. We're going to cover off pricing at the end. This is a sales webinar. I'm here to sell you product and solve problems in your business. So we will talk a little bit about pricing at the end, but I want to just dig into the actual product and show you what we're talking about. Let me bring my notes up here. So what you're looking at here, I'm going to full screen. We'll start with that. Is the home base of Windward Intelligence. The first report that we're going to look at is called the sales by category report, and it is really intended to just analyze the sales by main or subcategory over any period of time. In this specific report, I am working off a data set, a Windward data set that has published this transaction history up to Windward Intelligence. You can see in this data set, I've got a pretty small sample size. There's about 37 invoices, but enough to show you, what things are selling, not selling, and start to get some more insights into, your business and other I'll say looking at your sales from other angles, and you're going to see what I mean in just a second. So I think the first thing is on the sales by category report. This is very much gross revenue focused. It's looking at the number of invoices that each category has been impacted by, the average sale of the items in that category, and then the gross margin. So there is a bit of a profitability aspect on the actual grid, but this is going to tell us very quickly what are your top performing categories in the business. I think one of the coolest things about this is you do have drill up and drill down capability on each of these grids. So right now, I could drill down into part numbers, drill up into subcategories, and I believe I can even go one layer higher into main categories. So it's very much a dynamic report. Whenever you're looking at information, you can typically drill up or drill down. And this first one is, like I say, very specifically focused on gross revenue and what's been trending. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a tour before I dig into some of the use cases. Whenever you're looking at a Power BI report, there are what we call slicers or filters. There's two different terms depending on what type of slicer you're using, but the first would be a date filter. For example, I could easily switch to the last one calendar year and it will recrunch all those numbers almost instantaneously. So personally, I've used Windward Software internally to run a sales department for a long time. And whenever I'm trying to look at this year versus last year, there's always that point where you're clicking, waiting for the results, and then reviewing, and then maybe clicking the year before, waiting for results and reviewing. You can see right here, if I switch from 1 back to 3 years, you have an almost instant data fetch where it's telling you based on a call, hey, here is exactly what you're looking for, and I've presented that data back to you in seconds typically. In this graph, you can see blue is the 2021 year. Clearly, I didn't make enough sales in the last 2 years. That's just a function of my department data set not having a lot of transactions in it, but you're able to now see some overlay of what was working this year versus last year. So that's the date slicer. This is department aware. So for any Windward Software customers, I noticed there was some customers that have been with us a decade on this call, others that I think are still implementation, but departments functionality is a way to separate either multi-location or different profit centers within your Windward data set. So Power BI does support a department slicer. And one thing that's kind of nice about it is it's multi-select. So it's not just one or all. I could look at maybe my north and south location are in a certain region. So I could group those two together and analyze the sales of those two specific departments and not just have to do one at a time. So the department filter is one that you'll see carry through to a variety of the reports that we look at today. I'm going to select all. It's going to bring all my results back up. You also have a category slicer. So that's just a way to break down. I only want to look at maybe these 3 main categories as a grouping versus another that might be generally considered a different area of the business. The last slicer I'll show is the invoice type filter. This is just a way for you to analyze certain types of transactions. The primary use case for this Power BI report is sales. And in Windward, sales is typically accounts receivable or a cash transaction. Work orders are on their way to a sale, and it does sync work order information up, but the entire use case was designed around measuring the end result, which is your actual sales transactions, be it accounts receivable or cash. Because it does sync estimates and work orders, you could get creative with at least looking at what items are on work order and whatnot, but this is mostly for measuring the results. So those are the slicers, right? And we talked about being able to drill up or drill down. One thing I will also point out is when I use the term it's a dynamic report, what I mean by that is, say you notice, okay, appliances, that's my top selling category for this time duration. If I click on appliances, every other window filters based off of that category. So if I'm looking at, well, why do I have 20 grand in appliance sales over 12 transactions? I can click that and it'll tell you the actual part level detail of what was sold and how many invoices that item was on. It will also recalculate your grid to find out when you've been selling appliance items. So we can see in the back half of 2021, we had a bit of run on appliances. And again, in April 2020, we had a big run on appliances as well. So any one of these you can click, and it will slice the rest of the information that's being visually displayed from that angle. You know, one of the things that I wanted to focus on, let's go to report 2, gross margins from landed. And I'm just going to enter back into my full screen here. So one of the things that happens a lot in retail, wholesale businesses is you'll have items that are big ticket, but maybe are not highly profitable. And then on the flip side, you might have small items that are actually your money makers. I think about, for any Canadians on the call, I used to work at London Drugs, and you know, you'd sell your computers in the computer department, but the money was made often on USB cables. High margin $12 USB cables were a main profitability driver. So the second report, which is the gross margins report, the visuals are actually displaying the contributions by margin. So not necessarily how much sales or revenue was created, but how much profitability was created from those transactions. So if I just look at the last calendar year and I look at my total gross margin, you can filter by each, you can actually see which categories are making you the most money. So we just saw prior that appliances were way up there, but if you look here, my mulchers and trimmers actually contributed the most gross margin in that time period. In this example, again, small data set, but contributing $1,890 in profitability. So gross margin, very important. Again, it's the same type of layout. When this was designed, we were thinking about UX and making sure that there was continuity between how you interact with it. So again, if I click mulchers and trimmers, it will show me the specific part numbers that are contributing to that $1,890 of profitability. It will tell us the part number and how many you sold in that time period and what its contribution was specifically for that part number. One thing I'll point out at this point is you see these little, they're tiles is what it's called in Power BI. Every one of these reports we try to, you know, there's a lot of info on the screen, but we're trying to give you just the key KPIs in a tile type format. So when I click mulchers and trimmers, 3K sales, 1.1 in COGS, 1.89 in margin, and I'm making 63 points. So you get that very clear visual indicator of your data, and you're not always having to dig through the columns and whatnot. This is a good time to point out, though, another kind of interface type thing with Power BI is focus mode. So say I see a trend or something I want to dig deeper in, and I'm just visually, there's just too much going on the screen. You can enter focus mode, and this will basically isolate that report on your screen where you could resize. You can still sort and do everything else that you need to do, but it's just a way to get hyper focused on a certain table that you might have found within one of the dashboards. Let's go back. Third one we're going to look at is sales by salesperson. It's exactly what I'm describing. It's sales by salesperson. So the thing about this is it's looking at all your revenue, and it's looking at the clerk that created the transaction within the system. So this is used, there's a couple of use cases for this, but obviously you want to measure who your top salespeople are. That's a key one. But it's also about looking at what they're selling. So in a lot of businesses, you will maybe play favorites. If you're a salesperson, you might like this brand or this category of inventory, and you might have some secret sauce that another salesperson might need some training or help with. So as a manager, you could easily be able to see that in this time period, demo is my top salesperson. But if I click on demo, I can see why. Again, we're coming back to the mulchers. It looks like demo's selling a lot of mulchers and trimmers. 3 of them, 3 transactions in that time period, high margin type items. And you'll also notice at the bottom of this one, that we've added a supplier sales by salesperson. So this is really important to go beyond just, okay, well, they like mulchers and trimmers. That's kind of a weird, a weird preference, but okay, I see that they're selling a lot of that. But what about the actual suppliers? And in a lot of businesses, I think power equipment, furniture and appliances, sales reps, they get to know their suppliers. They may know the sales rep who's highly communicative on the product specs and things like that. There's certain behaviors that will lead a salesperson to sell certain products, whether it's a category or a supplier. And this is just highlighting that. So we can see again, the demo very much prefers Alpine Distributors products over Whirlpool or Ashton's. Go talk to that rep. What's your secret? Why do you prefer that? Do you mind speaking to the other sales team about how you've had success, what your conversion points are on that specific type of product or that category? Really good for just coaching conversations in your sales team, right? It's also giving you some other, if I enter focus mode on this, it's also giving you some other info like how many unique SKUs has this person sold? So not only is Basil Hayden here only made one transaction, he's only sold 3 unique SKUs. So that's another thing, is somebody getting really hyper focused on selling the same product again. What is that product and are they having success with it? So we'll go back to the report. Again, here on the left, this is giving you a pie chart breakdown of the different categories. So if I click on demo, it does kind of a cool thing with the pie chart. It'll show you what demo's contribution was to appliances. He or she makes up the majority of the appliance sales during that time period. So you're able to see, again, just a trend with a highly visual piece. All of the visuals also can enter focus mode, which makes it much easier to digest, graphs and pie charts and things like that. One thing that on this report that is another usage or usability thing for Windward Intelligence is, I'll take in my team, we've got, most of we've got our account managers. They manage current clients, and we've got our business developers who we win new business with. You're able to control click data within this. So if you wanted to select Kristen and Basil because they're part of the AM team versus the business development team, you can actually combine just those 2 people's information, and then again, all of the details in the pie charts will allow you to control click and consolidate for the selections that you've made. Let's go back one. We're gonna go look at the top 10. And I do encourage, just looking in here, I do encourage questions. I can tell we're gonna probably go pretty quick through it. I'll try to slow down and get into a little more detail, but definitely gonna encourage questions at the end. So write them down, and then we can always jump back to a certain report if you want to go deeper on that. So the top 10 report is probably the most visual of the Windward Intelligence dashboards. It is made specifically to get a big picture view of what's going on in that time frame. I'm also going to stop for a second, point out that the date filter on this one is different. And that was actually a choice. So when you look at, say, sales by category, the date filter is looking at last 3 years, last 6 months, and it's using what I call a relevant date filter. So a specific, almost like an accounting time period, right? A month, a year, things that are measured in groupings like that. When I go back to the top 10, we're using a totally free form date slicer. And I just want to give some logic for that. Some of the reports we chose to go with the, this month, last year, that slicer. This one is about being able to select a specific time period. So think about a garden center where you ran a promo from June 3rd to 5th. That doesn't fit into this week or last week or this month. So this is allowing you to analyze a very specific time period. Even as a business owner, you went on vacation. You want to measure what the results were when you went on vacation, right? And find out, did things slow down? What were people doing? What were we selling while I was gone? So that was a very deliberate choice to use that type of date slicer on certain reports. And it's quite easy to be able to just click and drill into a different date if you need to. But the top 10, as the name says, is a top 10 sales from each of these angles. So top 10 selling parts, top 10 salespeople, which we kind of looked earlier. The demo was our top rep. Top 10 subcategories, suppliers, customers, and cities. One thing I like about this one, very conducive to mobile, right? So when you're using Power BI, Windward Software is going to publish this information to basically your cloud account, and we're going to have this report for you to access through a browser. But you can also use the Power BI app, which is a Microsoft app, to view this same report. What it's basically doing is publishing this set of dashboards to the Power BI tool, and then you can have mobile access to it. So you can imagine with the top 10 being very visual, great report to just look at. You're on vacation and you just want to see what's happened for the week in a visual sense. What rep is selling the most while you're gone, or what customers have come in the shop even, right? What people have actually come in and purchased items. One thing that I really like about the top 10 is it's probably the most conducive to analyzing trends. So let's take a look at this. Why are refrigerators so much further ahead than every other subcategory? Right away, I can see we have an outlier in our data. If I click that, every other top 10 dashboard here will show you the refrigerator contribution. So right away, I can see that, okay, refrigerators are doing well. Oh, well, Basil is really focusing on them. 9K of Basil sales come just from refrigerators. So right away, I might want to talk to that person. You can tell refrigerators are doing well, because our top selling part is a fridge. Number one on our top 10 parts is a fridge, and that's obviously contributing to that as well. You can see the GE appliances are definitely contributing more than Alpine or Whirlpool in that category. They make up 9K of that 13. And you can also tell that Mike came in the store sometime in this date range and spent a bunch of money on refrigerators. Mike most likely lives in Jacksonville. You can see, right? Mike Jackson in Jacksonville, how creative, but those dollar values match, and you can see that, okay, well, it's starting to tell a story. So again, you can control click. So if you see your subcategories and you want to just say, well, I wonder how our furniture is doing right now. Of course, you can drill up and look at main category furniture, but even then you might have furniture in a few main categories. So here you could actually, again, control click. Of course, I'm not grabbing all furniture here, but control click, and then look at the sum of those categories and what contributed to them from the other angles. So the top 10 reports, very useful. And I want to just kind of take a second here. Think about any customers that have been with us a long time. I'm working in a data set with 37 sales, but if you've been with us for a decade, you've got thousands of transactions. When we set Windward Intelligence up for you, it is going to sync those sales transactions over. It's not from this point forward. So what's going to happen is you're going to be able to look at your business from an entirely different angle, right? You're going to be able to look at what happened in 2019, that banner year you had, and start to get fresh eyes on it, that maybe the Windward reports, they gave you some insights, but it wasn't quite as visual, or you weren't able to do the year over year comparisons because you might have ran out of patience clicking through the reports. I do want to point out, I don't want to, our Windward System 5 reporting is very strong, but there's 3 things that can contribute to speed of reporting, right? There's your infrastructure. And for any of our on-prem customers here, we don't fully control your infrastructure. You might have old servers and things like that. In our cloud environment, we have much more control over infrastructure and speed. So infrastructure is a factor. The other thing that might control speed is the size of the data set. And in Power BI, that data set is actually using a Microsoft cloud technology to be able to crunch bigger numbers than what your on-prem or even the cloud environment might be able to do in similar time. The third factor is database, right? So in Windward Software, we use a pervasive database, and It's been great. It's rock solid. We are looking at some new database technology, but what this is essentially doing is moving those sales transactions over to this Microsoft cloud environment and leveraging their newer database technology to be able to crunch huge amounts of information in a small amount of time. So there's always going to be a place for built-in Windward reporting. And I'll actually use this opportunity to even highlight a couple things that this won't do for you. This will not track rental revenue. This is, for now, very much a sales-based reporting tool. It's looking at the actual deduction of inventory quantities, not the rental of inventory. So that's an important factor. The other, look at my notes here. It doesn't move GL data. So I noticed there's, I think, see on here, there's a couple accountants on here. Obviously, your margin data is coming over, but your entire ledger series is not being published over. The third obvious one that comes to me is serial numbers. So we're getting part level info, but we're not getting serial level info. And while I'm at this top 10 screen, I'll point out, just because I say now that this report I'm showing you doesn't have GL, doesn't have rental revenue, and it doesn't have serial numbers, it absolutely could. And there has been examples, especially with both GL and rental, where we've done custom Power BI reports that address other parts of the database. So what we're actually showing you today and what the price is that we're going to communicate today is for this canned report, series of reports, there's 7 of them that are included that are leveraging a data sync that we've already built. But there is absolutely opportunity for paid enhancements or custom mods, as we often call them. If you said, you know what, I love that tool, but I really want it for my accounting department and I want all our 6,000 series expenses to be moved over so I can group and analyze them. If you are interested in a custom Power BI, just reach out to your account manager. If you don't know who your account manager is, you can just throw a name in the chat there and Kyle can round those up. But we're really looking to build out the type of dashboards that are provided, and the quickest way to get one that is bespoke or catered to your needs is to go through our custom enhancement process. So this was kind of the best catch-all where we felt we could address the biggest customer base and what needs they had with looking at Windward reporting versus kind of a big data tool like this. So those are the gotchas, just worth noting.
Hey, since we're on that,
you bet.
Tab, I know you want to get those last 3 tabs done. We did have a question come in. The question is, we had a salesperson driving revenue by discounting heavily. Can this tool help us show this problem easily?
Interesting. I do not have, in a roundabout way, yes. And I might need to think on that a bit more, but here's what I could tell you. You don't have a discount column to say the dollars discounted by this salesperson, but you do have gross margin percentages. So one thing you could do is compare the reps. I could click the mulchers and trimmers and see right away, that's a bad example because only demo sold that category, but I could see that demo was getting us 63 points in that category. In your example, you would have numerous reps who also sold that, and you would be able to tell an outlier on discounting by analyzing the margin. So although it's not a big obvious discount report, you could very much tell. Let's see, maybe if I got one with different reps. Let's look at even. Might be tough. Yeah, still just demo again. It's a function of not having a lot of info in here, but moral of the story is you could click the category, you would have all your salespeople here that sold items in that category, and then be able to compare the margin by each. So that would be one way to do it. Is that good, Kyle? Anything else before I go on to the last couple?
No, that's it right now. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and throw them in that questions area and we'll address them.
Yeah, no worries. So I wanted to get on to customer analysis, and this was one that's near and dear to my heart. We've got a bunch of customers here, and this is really about looking at who your best customers are, from a revenue standpoint, maybe not relationship, but revenue, at least the numbers. Who are your best customers? What are they buying? And this is a really important one for you to make marketing decisions, right? And should we be marketing in this area? We'll touch more on that later. It's important for you to look at pricing decisions. A lot of the companies that are on this webinar today may be doing kind of like some B2B sales. Think about lighting showrooms where you've got contractors. Right away, I can see here that Smith Construction is my second best customer over this time frame, 2021. So looking at this, there's a term that I like to use internally called account development. It's looking at your best customers or your poorest customers as far as revenue spend, and how do you develop that account? Some ideas, you might look at Smith Construction and say, hey, you know what? You did 4,400 with us last year. If you get to 10K in 2023, I'll put you on a special price schedule. Windward supports price schedules. You can use this to incentivize customers to come back and move their business with you. Specifically important in the B2B space, where in this example, this contractor is absolutely shopping you around with the lighting showroom down the street and trying to make sure that they're doing the best for their business. So looking at who your best customers are and then clicking Smith Construction to find out what they're buying is very relevant. And in this example, I maybe don't want part number or inventory level detail. I want the category detail. So I've clicked Smith Construction. I want to zoom in. Well, what are they buying? Well, it looks like they're spending a lot of money, again, on refrigerators. So you're able to look at what that customer's buying and maybe focus or incentivize them for certain categories. As you know, each item in Windward System 5 can have its own price schedule. And there's also a feature called contract pricing, which allows you to say, you know what, you've been moving a lot of fridges with us. You're probably doing some developments. Maybe not relevant for a lighting showroom, but you get the point. So I'm going to give you contract pricing on these 10 models for the rest of the year, and let's see if we can do some more business together. This one I will say, the grids are kind of tight. We did that on purpose because we know there is a drill-in function, but also that you can see the 3 levels in one screen. So when I clicked Smith Construction, a couple things happened. It showed me Smith Construction sales by category, but this was actually when we rebuilt version 2 of Windward Intelligence. We also added invoice level information. So actually seeing the invoice number, the subtotal, which department sold to that customer, and the date. It will actually bring in some receivables information in the sense of this invoice, how much did they actually pay? What was the tender collected? So it's a nice visual to just tell a story of, okay, Smith Construction, here's what they're buying. Last sale wasn't since October. So maybe I need to call them and get them in. You can also see a grid just when they were spending money with you and when things might have broken off or petered off with that customer. Same concept, you can control select and analyze a group of customers if you need to. One thing that's interesting about this is customer analysis is bringing really anybody with a transaction in that date range into this report. So for some of you who've got hundreds or 1,000 customers, if you ran this back to 2019, that's a lot of information that it's crunching, and it's listing every person who spent money with you back to January 1st, 2019. Again, you can see how quick that pumped that information out to my report, and then still have your visuals here on the left just to see there's Mike Jackson in Jacksonville showing up again and diving into when he last spent money with you. Another new one is the supplier analysis, and it's almost the same layout as customer analysis. But what I will say is with the supply chain situation right now, everybody's analyzing their suppliers. They're trying to find alternate suppliers. I'm having a lot of conversations with customers around lead time is too long from my primary, so I'm chasing down secondary suppliers. Even if the cost is a bit higher, I need products on the shelf. We kept talking about appliances. You remember the great appliance rush of the past 2 years with people stocking up on freezers and things. So supplier analysis is about which suppliers are performing for you from a revenue standpoint. So there is features in System 5 to help track lead time, and there's a great professional services catalog actually that we built called Systematic Ordering, which is about implementing min and maxes and lead time into your purchasing process. So highly recommend that if you haven't heard of that. It's a professional services catalog item we sell, but this is a great supplementary tool to say, okay, well, I know what I need to order, but what about when it gets here? What's actually selling? What suppliers' products are actually moving for us? So I can see right away that Alpine is my top performing supplier. I can see Whirlpool second at 1/10 of the value. So this is where you might go into System 5 and think, well, I'm sitting on $500,000 of Whirlpool products and only $100,000 on Alpine. Maybe I don't have the right product at the right time, or maybe I need to look elsewhere or shake something up there. But this is specifically about the revenue generated where that part number was tagged to be bought from this supplier. And again, a drill down and drill up function for category and part. So you can look at that level of detail. The last one that I'll show, doing pretty good on time in here, 2:35. This is a highly visual report. It's just plotting the sales on a map. For some of you, you might be a local, very regional business that serves your town and the one over. I get that. But our customer base is growing. We're dealing with B2B. We're dealing with B2C where there's e-com involved and sales are getting shipped all over. So it's very much becoming a bigger network of customer databases, right? Where you're seeing people buy stuff from other places, especially if you're multi-location, this is even more relevant. But what this sales by region report's focused on is the address of the customer that bought and then plotting it on a map. So again, very useful for marketing, right? We keep putting money into the Traverse City newspaper, but nobody's buying in Traverse City. It looks like all the money's coming from down in the Chicagoland area. So maybe pivot some resources there, maybe put a sales rep down there, maybe open a store down there, right? There's lots of things you could do with this data around where people are spending money with you. And another good one about this is you can drill up or down. So you can look at it from a state and province level and group those together, or you can look at it more at an actual city basis, right? Of course, you gotta have good data in your CRM record. You gotta make sure you're entering address information on a customer record. If you're collecting just cash sale, no CRM record, then it's not gonna be able to plot that data, but this is a great one just to start understanding where the spread is of your customer base.
Hey, Tavish, you can actually drill in down to the street level on that as well, which might be useful for finding neighborhoods that have rich blood, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd have to check that out. Oh yeah, you mean just actually zooming in on it. So yeah, this is actually getting me right down to where it's likely with this transaction in the back end, we probably just had Seattle, Washington. That's why it's plotting it right on the Seattle word. But if you had 10 sales with customers in Seattle with the actual address, what Kyle's saying is it would plot it out by neighborhood within that region. So that's very relevant for even the one location, I serve my area and maybe one county over or whatnot. For that level of detail as well. That's a good point, Kyle. And I think it's also a good case for making sure that you do collect addresses, the actual address on the record. You can see here, this is more like what he's talking about, where you've got a Penticton sale and a Peachland sale within that same general area. So let me go back to my slides. We can jump back into when questions come up. What's the cost? There's a big price difference between two segments of our customer base, and I'll just give you a bit of a backstory. So we launched this product in 2018, and there were some technical reasons and some business reasons for this, but we launched it only for our cloud customers. It was used very much as an incentive to move to cloud, and it still is, as you can see on the screen. It's easier for us to set up in cloud. There's less infrastructure concerns on cloud, more quality control. It is absolutely still used as an incentive for people to jump to cloud. And anybody who's on cloud or considering it, we only charge $450 for this entire suite of reports. Keep in mind, you do need a Power BI subscription. There's different levels. You need a Power BI Professional subscription is the actual one that you need. Typically, it's about $10 per user per month. You don't need your whole business with Power BI licenses. It might just be your manager, the owner, and the service manager. But you need a Power BI license, and then you would need to commit with Windward, where we would set you up through our professional services department. When you're on cloud or going to cloud, we charge $450. The big change and why we're doing this webinar company wide is about 6 months ago, we had made a couple exceptions and figured out the technology to get a local on-prem server to pump up to Power BI and use Windward Intelligence. So we made a very conscious decision that as much as we want people to move to cloud, and there's benefits for that, this is a great reporting tool. It's a huge leap forward for any Windward customer, especially if they've been with us a long time and have had their info very much contained within System 5. We're missing opportunity not only for sales, but to better our customers' experience with our products. It's almost a retention play. We want you to stay with us, so we want to put our best foot forward and make sure you have access to some of these tools. The price is higher. It is quite a bit higher. It's harder to set up, and to be honest with you, this was very much a loss leader to get people into cloud, right? We want to make sure, okay, we're charging a very nominal amount, but we're getting them into cloud, and there's a bit more stability with our cloud customers. So for on-premise, you pay $3,500, and then annually you pay a $500 maintenance fee. Plus you have your Microsoft cost, which is just you buying that off Microsoft's website, a Power BI license. Part of just because I'm thankful that we had a bunch of people show up today is any on-prem customers, we are doing a $500 off promo just for the next 2 weeks, just to try to get some conversion on this. Why I ran this webinar is we launched this for our on-premise customers, and I feel we've been having a hard time getting our message out. And I know for me, who used Windward for sales reporting and then got access to this tool, I could not live without it anymore. I could find the information in Windward, absolutely. There's strong reporting in there, but the ease and the quick access to, how is this category doing year to date, and who's the top rep that's selling it, and being able in 2 clicks to drum that information up, know exactly which report to go to, and then compare it to the year before with another 2 clicks. It's been a game changer for me, and I just really felt like we've had a couple on-prem customers buy this, but we weren't getting our message out. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to hear us out on this. We do have that promo running. Again, you can contact your account manager on activating that, or if you have additional questions. Let me see if I got one more slide here. Q&A with some time to spare. How about that? I'll turn my webcam back on here in case everybody needs to see my flush face after talking for 35 minutes straight.
Yeah, now that everybody's got all their questions answered, because there's nothing coming into the question section. Yeah, you must have done a really good job there. Oh, there is one that just came in. Actually, 2. Does Windward have to be cloud-based to use Windward Intelligence? Of course, you just answered that. No, you don't need to be cloud-based. Can portions of this report be customized and shared with frontline employees to drive sales competition?
I believe they would need a Power BI license to even view. I will confirm that. I'm thinking internally we do have my sales reps who reference our version of this, but they all have Power BI Pro licenses. So the worst case expense there would just be the $10 per month with Microsoft. We can validate that. Kyle, if you can check it out. There
Yeah,
might
I
be,
think there was a way to publish to a website, but we'll get a correct answer for that.
yeah,
Um,
definitely to view the full tool, you need a Power BI Pro license. The question is, can you export this to a website in like a view only mode for your frontline staff? Either way, you can get your frontline staff into Power BI Pro. It's just whether you incur additional costs through Microsoft is the question.
There was a latecomer that was asking, does Windward Intelligence also have reporting on written sales?
Interesting. There's a couple gotchas with the data. Written sales is about the date of W. Most of this information is based off of the invoice date. So the date that it was converted to a C or an A. So in the furniture space, I'm going to get back to whoever asked that. I'm guessing it's probably a mega group.
Yeah, I think it's a mega group. Yeah, so I think they're actually working on something for that anyway.
Yeah. The initial answer is this is looking at the date of invoice, so of actual revenue recognition, not the date that the transaction was written. Now, there is some things in here for work orders and stuff like that, but it's still not the same as true written sales in that regards.
Yep.
That would be a great example of a custom report or a place where a clean written sales report could live rather than a Windward written sales report. This could be a good use case. And I'm going to take this second just to point out, when we sell this is the supported, QA approved dashboards that we're providing. But there is an underlying database that gets synced. We do not, we sell this product and this is what it does and we support it, but there is access to the underlying database. If you had a real good Power BI wizard that wanted to just create a new, it's called a PBIX file, just like an Excel file is XLS, create a new PBIX file that maybe looked at things just from a slightly different angle. I don't necessarily recommend that. Having us custom build and manage end-to-end Power BI reports is the way to go. But just be aware that what's actually happening is we're syncing your sales data to the Power BI platform, and it is there for consumption. Having somebody do that can probably be more dangerous than you think if you're looking at wrong information. So just be aware that there are some customers who have chosen to go the custom route with us where we publish certain fields and then they maybe have their data expert take it across the line. That's kind of our second recommendation. The first is to go through a custom mod process where we're actually gathering requirements, making sure the data push exists and building the front end interface for you to consume it. That's definitely the way to go as far as quality control.
Yep, and that was actually a question that came through. Can you create your own reports? So, short answer is yes. Is it recommended? No.
Yeah, and just think about this, right? So the reason why I say it's dangerous, and I have to address it here because anybody who bought this one day is going to click the fields button and just start, oh, look at all this other stuff that's coming over. It's all about data has to have a relationship, right? So when I click on a garden, when I click on the appliance, that correlation to who bought it and what date, that's been done in our quality assurance processes, right? So not recommended, but it is, that database is underlying and accessible, and there are some people who have done other Power BI reports off of the database sync. The key, the absolute key, and I can't say this any clearer, I don't even think we allow you to do this, but leave the one that's provided as is, right? We provide this as a templated, quality controlled set of dashboards that we trust the information, we support the information, if there was something wrong, we would fix it. Anything that goes off that beaten path is you're on your own, besides of course the custom mod. So.
Okay, we do have a couple more questions, and I know that we're running out of time here, so let me just get these to you. One is, how long does it take to set this up, and is there a waiting period? And also along that same topic is, does it take longer for on-prem versus cloud?
Typically, it takes longer for on-prem versus cloud just because we're coordinating with the third party. So absolutely. The actual The actual sale to launch time, I've actually seen a pretty wide range. Our professional services department is doing more of these now, and we've seen setups in a couple weeks. The delta is just because within a couple weeks we can have this. Backlog is a great example. We might sell 15 of these after the webinar, and we're going to be scheduling them out maybe longer than a couple weeks. It's all about the ebbs and flows of our business with professional services. But I'll tell you this, it would be easier to set up on cloud because we're actually coordinating with the cloud operations team and not your IT department and server. So just that almost applies for a lot of conversations when we're talking about cloud versus on-prem. When we manage the infrastructure, there's less chasing, there's less unknowns in the environment, such as old operating systems. But the actual setup time in a smooth project could be as short as 2 weeks, but that's entirely dependent on, you would need your Power BI license with Microsoft, so you'd have to have that subscription going, I should say, and just availability to work with us and availability of the technicians. We have very specific technicians who become skilled with this, right? And making sure that if we have a sales run, that their availability can keep up. So hopefully that answers the question without being, I know I'm kind of being non-committal there because I'm not sure what the current throughput is.
No worries. There was a question about, is there a way to find the inventory subcategory for PO? But I'm not sure that we'd be able to do that.
Order. Great question. So no, but I've had that conversation a few times. Let's go look at the supplier analysis. When I build that, you'd think supplier analysis would be, what are my costs? How fast are they shipping stuff? This supplier analysis is about the sales of products from a supplier, but I do view purchase order and purchasing information as a great potential custom mod for Power BI. Moving, just like all of this is driven from invoice transactions, imagine this similar type of report, but with all of your purchase order and accounts payable transactions. So the answer is no, there is no PO data coming over. There is some cost and margin information coming over, but not the purchase order transaction.
Okay, and then for cloud, actually on the pricing again, can we just go back to the pricing? There was a question about if somebody migrates to cloud, what's their amount payable every year?
It's the beauty of it. We charge you the $450 setup, but your cloud subscription includes your Windward Intelligence subscription as well. So just another advantage of moving to cloud.
So if somebody got, had a low user count, the amount to pay for Windward Intelligence is probably more than their cloud conversion, is what you're saying.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the answer to that specific question is once you go cloud, we charge $0 annually for this product. That may change. We always reserve the right to look at price, usage, and stuff like that, but it has been that way for a long time. We charge a setup fee, and that's very much a good reason to switch to cloud. That's why we do that. On-prem, if you can see $3,500 worth of value, $3,000 right now with the promo for the next couple of weeks, then you would just pay $500 yearly going forward until you switch to cloud.
And then we do have somebody asking about what the expenses would be for custom reports, but I think that would be more of a conversation to find out what exactly they wanted. The last one is the doozy. So I left it for last on purpose.
Here you go.
Is all our data published, and is it just that Windward hasn't created a rental dashboard yet, or is there rental info available and pushed to?
If you're not using this product, none of your data is, that could be a tricky question. If you're a cloud customer, we're not publishing any data to Microsoft Power BI anywhere, unless you're using this platform actively. Is that what I understand?
Right. No, I think what the meaning of the question is are there fields for rental information available, and could they create?
Gotcha. There was one customer, I'll get the backstory on this for any rental customers. There was one customer, we built a data pump for rental and built a dashboard. When we've revisited that to see if we can turn that into a sellable product, And it was so custom for that specific user that it is not just sitting there waiting for somebody to buy custom and dust it off. It would need some development work, and that would actually start with just requirements, because when somebody says, I want a rental Windward Intelligence report, the first question is, okay, well, what specifically? Utilization, revenue, availability information. That's a big, wide net. So we do have something started on the rental side, but it's not just done waiting for somebody to spend money, so to say, on a finished product. It would go through a custom mod process. Same with the
So it
GL.
sounds like there's some interest in some custom mods here.
Yeah, it's a when you think about, what we need is our development team to, when we do a custom mod, to publish that, but the design and the UX, you would have some input on in our custom mod process around, what you want it to look like, what info needs to be on that dashboard. So this is absolutely a product that lends itself well to paid enhancements.
I think everybody calmed down on the questions, but if you do have other questions, you can reach out to your account manager and we can definitely chase after those.
Yeah. We're pretty much right on time as well. All right, Kyle, are we good? Anything else you can think of?
We don't have any other questions, and you over-explained everything. We love it.
That's what I do.
Now everybody just has to get in contact with their account manager and get their projects started.
Awesome. Yeah, and I believe even in the email that notified you about this, there was a lead form to be able to, if you want to engage with us that way, but definitely reach out to your account manager and they could get you a quote on it, and specifically take note of the promo, which will run until the 21st. Awesome. Let's go from there. I'll give you all 5 minutes back in your day. I appreciate everyone's time and attention today and hearing us out on this cool new product. Also, keep an eye in your inboxes for an email about WebSell. This is the other highly exciting product launch that is going to be, filling your inboxes and social media for the next while, and that's a full e-commerce integration to a new partner of ours, actually within the same corporate structure as us. So WebSell coming soon. Thank you very much.